Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star's daily sports podcast. It's Wednesday, September 2nd, and I'm Blair Kerkhoff. Big Ten football. Will there be a season during this academic year? When would it start? At one point, there was a schedule, then an announcement of no fall season, then a lawsuit by Nebraska players, and now the presidential candidates have turned it into a little political football. It's been a crazy few weeks in that conference. The Big 12, SEC, and ACC are among the 6 Division I conferences scheduled to open their seasons this month. The Big 10 and Pac-12 are among those not playing. On today's episode, I'm joined by my old friend Tom Shatel, the award-winning sports columnist for the Omaha World-Herald. Tom's a Kansas Cityan and worked at the Star about 1 million years ago. How do I know it's been about 1 million years? Because he left the paper the year I joined. Hey, we cover a lot of ground about the Big Ten's decision not to have a fall season, where things stand now, and what it means to Nebraska football fans. So let's get going with my conversation with Tom Shatel.
All right, Tom. So the first question I got for you is, how are you going to spend your Saturdays this fall?
I'm going to go to Kansas City and get some real barbecue.
There you go.
This is, I miss the days of Dan Beebe and DeLost Dodds on the walking around the Plaza Hotel, telling people he was gonna end it all right there, and take down the Big 12 and Chip Brown tweeting everything, and Tom Osborne and all that stuff.
The Mountain City Summit.
Please take me back to the Big 12, please. Everything I ever said, I take it back. No, it's really it's a tough time up here because people in Nebraska want to play football. They want football, and they feel like they should at least try. And I feel like they should at least try. We've already had high school football games up here, and they're having, they're just letting parents watch. Now, Omaha Public Schools are not playing, so they're sort of the Big Ten of Omaha. They've shut it down while everybody else is playing, and all the Omaha athletes, Omaha Public Schools athletes, are saying, "Hey, why aren't we playing?" So it's a little preview of what's going to happen here when the Big 12 starts playing next week, and then you've got the SEC and the ACC. What an interesting time! Everybody has different doctors, different medical information, I guess.
Right.
But
I got that. Nebraska's first football season was 1900, and they have not missed a fall football season since then. They played through those 2 years of being an independent when, they couldn't get a Missouri Valley schedule back in they played through influenza, they played through World War II. They have not missed a fall, and now it's going to happen. And this, we're talking about this has been going on for months, but this has been less than 3 weeks that we've known this is going to happen. And 3 weeks ago, we had a schedule for Nebraska football, and then 6 days later, we didn't have a season. So what happened? What happened in those 6 days?
Well, think about that. College football has rolled through 2 world wars, the Vietnam War, 9/11, the Great Depression, and the pandemic of 1918, the Spanish flu, which killed thousands. I don't know the exact number, but that season, there wasn't a Big Ten to tell Nebraska that they couldn't play. Everybody was kind of on their own, and Nebraska put together. A lot of schools were not playing that year, but Nebraska was one that did. They actually played 5 or 6 games, including a postseason game that they kind of drummed up. But one of the teams they played was called Omaha Balloon, which I don't know what some kind of clown outfit, I guess. But they ended up playing Iowa. I think they played Missouri or Kansas that year, and they played they got Newt Rockne and Notre Dame to come to Lincoln, and the game was postponed twice because of the pandemic, but they kept trying, and Notre Dame came down and played. They played the snow, and Notre Dame won. But that's kind of what I was thinking would happen this year, and everybody thought that there was going to be a schedule, and if you had to delay, you'd be like what the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12 have done. They said, well, we're going to try it. And the schedule they had was brilliant. They had like little bye weeks and a couple pauses, and it went good. Except for the opener, Nebraska was at Rutgers. That should never be a conference game. I don't know what conference that is, but it's no conference I've ever known in my life. But this Big Ten it's like the worst Twilight Zone episode for me. I growing up in the Big 8 and Big 12, and now I've just spent the rest of my career up here doing this. But the Big Ten suddenly I've always had it in the back of my mind that this was going to happen because the Big Ten thinks it's too good for everybody, and it knows best, and they have the moral high ground, and we are smarter than you. We are the Big Ten. We will tell everybody is going to follow us. So I kind of thought, okay, this is going to happen at some point. They're going to call this off because that's who they are. And sure enough, it happened a lot sooner than anybody thought. It caught everybody by surprise. And the way it was handled, it's so funny. It happened on Tuesday, but the day before, Scott Frost had a Zoom press conference to kind of update everybody on the first week of practice. And he was asked, okay, well, Scott, what happens if the season was called off or, at some point you don't play? And he goes, well, the Big Ten decides not to play. And he said, well, we want to keep playing. We'd like to go play other games if we can. And that's all he said. And so everybody went out of their minds. And then the next day, the Big Ten called it. And the commissioner, who's new, he's from the Minnesota Vikings. He was in the front office. Kevin Warren went on the Big Ten Network to try to explain why they were calling off the season on August 11th, and he just did a horrible job. He didn't answer any questions. He skipped around every question that Dave Revson asked, a lot of good questions, and he just couldn't say why they were doing it, and except that they were trying to be cautious, and they didn't like the way things were going, and so Nebraska came out with a statement signed by the president, the chancellor, the AD, and the head coach, saying, "We're very disappointed in this. We still would like to keep playing anybody." And so, the word got out of Lincoln that they wanted that they were going to look around the Big 12 or maybe the SEC and try to play some games like 1918. Just find Omaha Balloon, find anybody that will play you. And people started screaming at Nebraska like, "You get out of the Big Ten. If you don't want to be here, get the hell out of here." Of course, I jumped on that and said, "Yeah, let's go back to the Big 12. That makes a lot of sense. We don't belong here." So everybody took my column and said, well, they're just trying to leave. They actually were never trying to leave. They're just trying to play football because every home game is worth $3 million to the city of Lincoln. And or it may be $5 million. I can't remember the number, but it's big. And so they've already laid off well over 50 or 60 people from the athletic department. And the city of Lincoln is going to lose restaurants and bars without football this fall. A lot of towns are going to, who are in the Big Ten and the Pac-12, are probably going to have that happen as well. I thought Texas has already laid off some people, and they have all the money in the world. So
did that yesterday. Yeah, announced it yesterday.
Yeah, but But to answer your question, they've never explained why they changed. They've never given an answer. It's a PR disaster. They never had any presidents step forward and explain it. They never had any medical people. It was like the secret medical thing that they had that nobody else. It's just so typical Big Ten that we know better and everybody's going to follow us. And there've been a lot of stories have come out since then. And one of the stories that I came out of Michigan was that the Big Ten presidents were told or had information that the ACC was going to follow them, but that Notre Dame told the ACC, "No, we're going to play football this year, and we'll give you future games. We'll play more ACC teams if you play this year." So that was one of the stories that came out. So Notre Dame kind of screwed over the Big Ten again, but so it made it look terrible. So I don't know, Blair. It's a mess, and it keeps getting worse. Now both presidential candidates have used the Big Ten as a literal political football to try to get votes. It's just
in toss-up type states. Let's not forget that. I mean, the Big Ten has at least 4 states that are battleground, maybe more than that, battleground states. That's why we joked earlier. That's why we don't see Trump and Biden talking much about trying to save the Pac-12 season, but they're all over the Big Ten, man.
Exactly.
Hey, it's Blair. We have a special subscription offer for SportsBeat KC listeners, unlimited digital access to the Kansas City Star's award-winning sports coverage. Sign up now for 1 year of Sports Pass for access to all the sports news, features, and columns presented on the kansascity.com site, and it's only $30. That's a 40% savings off our regular rate. Your subscription will automatically renew after the initial term at $50 unless you tell us to cancel. Your subscription helps support the sports coverage of kansascity.com and the Kansas City Star, and that support has never been more important. Please visit kansascity.com/SportsBeatKC offer to get this special offer. And as always, thanks for listening.
One of the later developments is, 8 Nebraska football players and their families file a lawsuit, and Nebraska really wants to, be a voice in the opposition to the decision. And it's obviously the leading voice. But I don't think the Huskers, we know that the Huskers aren't alone. We know by the tally of the vote and just public comments that, Nebraska's not the only program unhappy about the decision that the Big Ten made or the way that the Big Ten handled it.
Right. That's been interesting to watch because the Big Ten has been so united. They're almost like a group of clones, or I call them robots, where they just sort of just all fall in line. It's an old school club of old money, basically, in the old money of college sports, and it's like a giant fraternity, and everybody's all for one off, and but all of a sudden, this has really splintered the league. Everybody is not united. They're not on the same page. They've been kind of fighting over this, and several school parents groups have come out and taken the lead because the schools can't really do it. So the parents have taken the lead, and Nebraska team parents have been very organized, and they've gotten other schools on board with, sending letters. I think at one point Ohio State parents went to Chicago and loaded up the station wagon and van and drove to Chicago, and they were outside the conference offices. Well, they didn't know that the conference office was closed because of COVID. Everyone was working at home. But I mean, the commissioner couldn't even come out and see him. I mean, they didn't even have time for him. So Iowa parents were there. I mean, this thing is crazy. So Nebraska thought got the attention of everybody, but it sued the Big Ten. And that blew my mind. It blew everybody's mind, I think, that somebody actually sued the Big Ten. I mean, everybody falls in line, but Nebraska, they grew up in the Big 8 and the Big 12, where independent thinking, was how everybody, operates. It's sort of an entrepreneurial attitude where, we're all in the same league, but go out and get what you can, and that ultimately ended up sending Nebraska away from the Big 12. But that's how they've always operated. And by God, that's how they're going to operate here. They're not going to fall in line with the Big Ten. And so it's an interesting dynamic. I love it. And I think the Big Ten's boring and it needs to be shaken up a little bit. And, so Nebraska's been kind of doing that. And a lot of people don't like that. But they've gained some allies over, namely Ohio State is really happy with Nebraska for doing that, because Ohio State's, they're really mad. And they're the big dog of the Big Ten. They're sort of the Texas of the Big Ten, and they have a national championship team, and they aren't going to get to play. That national championship team isn't going to get to play when everybody else is playing, and they're not going to get the chance to win that national championship. And who knows how many players might leave or go to the NFL early, and it's a mess. So Nebraska's lawsuit was designed to make the presidents, to kind of shake them out a little bit, out of hiding, and get them to admit that there was a vote. They wouldn't even admit that there was a vote, or tell you what it was, and try to get some more transparency on the whole process. This is a major decision, and they just kind of blew it off. So that worked. To a point. They on Monday they released the vote, and it was 11-3, and that's all they did. But it was really they're going to keep pushing, because the presidents are afraid of any kind of discovery in court. They don't want those emails and conversations to get out, and I think that's interesting that their lawyer said it could be incredibly damaging if that kind of information ever got out. And they basically admitted that. So what are they trying to hide? I mean, this is what we're dealing with here. So, how hard is it to release a vote? How hard is it to say, have a press conference with one of your medical experts and say, here's what we think, and whether we're right or wrong, this is why we're doing it, and just tell everybody. And they won't do that, and it's incredibly frustrating. But I've been very impressed with how Nebraska has kind of stepped to the Big Ten when everybody told them to shut up and fall in line or get the hell out. And a lot of that is I think comes from Scott Frost. He's always been that kind of guy. He's always said what's on his mind, and he doesn't care what you think about it. I learned that a long time ago when he played, and you remember him as well. He'd say whatever he felt like, and that's kind of what he's been doing here. And he rubs people the wrong way in this league. They don't like that, but this attitude, I believe, comes from him. And I think it's going to serve them well on the field eventually. They got to get they're starting to get the players. They're starting to get the weight room going. But this is the kind of attitude that I think they're going to show when they start getting teams to going.
All right. So when is there going to be any Big Ten football in the 2021 calendar year?
Well, what's interesting is this idea of Thanksgiving weekend is starting to catch on. And ironically enough, it caught on last week when the Nebraska lawsuit came out, and these presidents were worried about having to turn over their emails. But to me, that's better than playing in January. I see no benefit to playing in January or February or March. I see, we're not sure. First of all, COVID will still be here. Second of all, we're not sure what kind of testing we'll have or a vaccine. Who knows if the vaccine, whenever it comes, is going to work. And there's not going to be a national championship. I mean, we're going to have college basketball, then we're going to have NFL playoffs. Who wants to watch, Minnesota play Michigan State or Michigan Rutgers, or when you're going up against the NFL and now the NBA and it's college basketball games or the national championship game, assuming these three leagues can all play. So, and I think a lot of players are going to opt out. Nebraska's not in favor of that at all because you can't. How many games are you going to play and then try to turn around and play next fall? You can't do it. So I was talking with Bruce Rasmussen, the Creighton AD, who they have a great college team coming back this year. They're very interested in college basketball being played. They're supposed to go to Allen Fieldhouse, which would have been a top 10 game in November, and that probably won't happen now. But he was telling me that the NCAA is very much into this, and they think they can have 2 or 3 bubbles, including one around Thanksgiving weekend, where a lot of the colleges this year are ending the fall academic semester on Thanksgiving weekend, so they're not going to send anybody back. So you're going to have campuses empty between Thanksgiving and mid to late January. It's about 8 weeks, and so the college hoops thinking is, we'll be in a bubble if there's nobody on campus. We can play hoops, and we can have people come to Omaha. It might be a bubble for the Big East. I bet Kansas City could be a bubble. You have the hotels right there. Indianapolis will be a bubble. But I was thinking, well, why shouldn't the Big Ten football play Thanksgiving? Just start then. If you're going to play in January, you're still going to be around. You're still going to be sending people back to class eventually. Why don't you move it up to Thanksgiving weekend and play through December and January, and do that? But so I'm not saying that listen to me, but I think that's certainly an option now. It's not the best option. It's probably not a very good option, but to me, it's better than the winter or spring. And trying to go into the NFL domes, and again, there'd be nobody in these domes. It'll be in the middle of winter, and it's Illinois, Wisconsin, in front of nobody, and who's going to watch? I just don't know how attractive that is, even to the Big Ten. Everybody is going to make fun of it, but I guarantee you, I don't know how the Big 12 feels about the Big Ten, but I know how the SEC feels about the Big Ten, and the SEC is definitely going to play this fall. They're going to try to stick it to the Big Ten any way they can, and I guarantee you there will be SEC games played, and probably ACC as well. And now, will that be interrupted? Maybe, but I think they're going to play. I think it's okay to play. I really do. I would at least try. So here we are.
Well, the NFL's doing it for sure, and look, everybody feels pretty good about what the NFL news so far in terms of there have been some COVID cases in the preseason, but for the most part, they've handled their business pretty well. The campus, the kids returning to campus has been a bit of a scare for the colleges, but the SECs, as you said earlier, they're waiting until the end of the month to start, and Big 12 they're starting on September 12th, but I think they feel confident that they'll be able to start. I'm a little concerned about fans in the stands at places like Iowa State, where they're talking about up to 25,000 people. Kansas is, of course, not having any fans in the stands. So that's, especially, and as we also mentioned, college towns are having an issue with COVID, as we know, because of the camp students returning. So, but they are going to try, and they're giving it a shot, and they've built in schedules have been built in for a couple of open dates during the year, so they got flexibility if they have to take off weeks.
I think it was to be expected. I think that's why they pushed those seasons back. You're going to get a spike. We just dropped our first college student off at college. Dropped our daughter Sarah off at Mizzou. Actually, the day after the Big Ten announcement, in fact, we dropped her off August 11th or 12th, and we moved into the dorm. We had our masks. We could only go up 2 at a time, and it was all very orderly. Missouri has a great plan. Now, the thing about COVID is the things are going to happen that you can't plan for. But I really trust the Missouri plan. Yes, they've had cases spike up, but they have dorms ready to go to put the COVID cases in those dorms. They've got hospital right there. They've got hospital rooms ready to go. Some of her classes are in person. A lot of them are not, but she's on campus. She got in a sorority. The sorority was shut down because they had a COVID case, so she hasn't been able to go in the house yet. Hey, I told her, that's just how this year is going to go. Do what you can and enjoy what you can. I think there's going to be football, and I think it's going to be done the right way. I think testing is a big part of this, and this is an interesting twist. The latest on the Big Ten, apparently the president yesterday, talking with the Big Ten commissioner, said that he obviously wants football. So for what you said, the swing states, and the commissioner said, well, can you help us with testing? And so president apparently is going to pledge federal help with Big Ten football testing. So they're going to get the best testing that you can get. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but that's what's being worked on right now. And so it's as the world turns. It's unbelievable. Yeah. If they play, Trump will take credit for that, and that'll probably turn some stomachs in the Big Ten where they're, I don't know which side of the aisle they're on, but there's bound to be people on the other side. But you know what? It's just the football means that much, and I appreciate that. And that's one thing about the Big Ten that I've learned. I talked to some people in Ohio State about this, and the thing I've learned about the Big Ten through all this is that the pushback is coming from a lot of different places. I guess Nebraska. The football matters in the Big Ten. It doesn't matter as much as the SEC, but it does matter. And these are all Midwest, Middle American places. The college football is the big thing on campus, and the Big Ten likes to put up the image of the academics and the libraries and blah, blah, blah. But the football matters a lot. And so I've appreciated it. I don't think it matters enough. I still think they have too many pig trophies and axes and, buckets and the one trophy Nebraska wants to play for is the national championship. They don't care about the pig. But it's been good to see that the Big Ten does care about football. So not nearly enough. They don't care enough to play in September, so we still have work to do.
Right.
That'll do it for today. Thanks to our production staff of Derek Donovan, Randy Mason, Beth Welsh, Jeff Rosen, Chris Fickett, and Savannah Smith. Big thanks to Tom Shatel, the sports columnist of the Omaha World-Herald, who talked to us about Nebraska football and the Big Ten. We've linked to a couple of his stories in the show notes. Hey, earlier in the episode, you heard me talk about the Sports Pass offer. It still stands, and it's still a good one. $30 for a year's worth of sports coverage, and that includes the Sports Extra that comes with the e-edition. There are 57 additional pages of national sports coverage today. Well, here's an even better offer. Buy the entire Kansas City Star product. Sports, news, features, commentary, analysis, a whole section on the presidential election. You get the whole thing. All the stories written by my talented colleagues, plus additional news, sports, and business coverage with this edition. There are 73 pages on the e-edition that don't include sports today. Great deal. The details can be found at account.kansascity.com/subscribe. That's account.kansascity.com/subscribe. And whether it's the Sports Pass or the full subscription, you're getting and supporting the best sports and news coverage in Kansas City and helping us produce programs like SportsBeat KC. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back on Thursday with another episode.